we steer this body off the precipice that he referred to give his words their very careful and objective consideration. I thank the distinguished senator from Louisiana, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President, or Madam President.
The senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to speak for the next just few minutes as we're in morning business about the subject that has been before the Senate now for over 5 weeks, in some ways unprecedented, that a bill of only 100 pages would actually take up 5 weeks of the Senate's time. And, Madam President, you know as a member of the Small Business Committee how important, although only 100 pages, and although only in the law since 1982, this program is not just to the federal government, but to the taxpayers that are relying on this to spend their money wisely on their behalf, and they're looking to us to promote and extend the life of programs that actually work and return a great investment to them, particularly in these challenging budget times and economic times. And, Madam President, this program, which was created by Senator Warren Rudman for the specific purpose of stimulating technological innovation, encouraging greater utilization of small businesses to meet federal research and development needs, and to increase private sector commercialization of innovations derived from federal research and development, is a bill that we must find a way to reauthorize, or a law to reauthorize. We are well overdue. We have now passed the authorization point by 6 years. We have been unable to reauthorize this important program. And it looks like we may be stuck again. Although the major arguments about this bill have been resolved. We're actually not arguing over the nuts and bolts of this bill. Isn't that sad? That all of the arguments about what percentage venture capitalists should get, what percentage, we have worked through all of those because we've worked in good faith, we've compromised, Democrat, Republican. The bill passed out of our committee, I believe, 17-1. 17-1. And authoring this piece of legislation is myself, the chairperson, Senator Snowe, a strong supporter of the underlying bill. Let me get the other co-sponsors. Senator Levin is a co-sponsor. Senator Brown is a co-sponsor. Senator Kerry, the former chair, is a co-sponsor. Madam President, you are an original co-sponsor, and I thank you. The new senator, your junior senator from New Hampshire, Senator Cardin, Senator Pryor. So we have a good number of Republican and Democratic senators. This is the bill. It's 100 pages. The sad thing is that in 5 weeks, we've had over 180 amendments filed on this bill. Very few of them have anything to do with this bill. That's more amendments than there are pages of the original bill. And you can understand why the majority leader, Senator Reid, cannot allow a vote on all 187 amendments. We might be here for another year, which isn't fair to the Senate. It's not fair to Congress. There are other important issues we have to get to. So we're trying to compromise. Senator Reid has been extremely patient, trying to work with Republicans and Democrats, and I think the last offer that is being considered has an equal amount, 14 amendments, an equal amount on both sides, most of which have nothing to do with this bill, but that we'll accept votes on, and actually one big amendment, significant amendment, that had nothing to do with this bill has already been voted on, agreed to, detached from this bill and sent to the President, and he's already signed it. And we're still on this bill. And that was the repeal of 1099, which was unanimously almost unanimously supported to repeal a very onerous provision of paperwork and regulation that was not proper to put on the backs of small business, and I'm proud that I led, with others, the effort to repeal that. That's been done. And yet we find ourselves still not in complete agreement that it's time to move on. So I just want to say a few more things. Number one, every state will benefit when this program is reauthorized. Most importantly, taxpayers will see significant results. And let me just tell you one that's quite startling but true, and I want it to be in the record. One company that participated in this program and received a small grant many years ago and then received another grant to help them get started, Qualcomm, is now one of the most successful businesses in the world. That one company pays more taxes to the federal government every year than the entire budget of the Small Business Administration. Let me repeat. One company started in large measure, not solely, but they testified on the record in large measure because of this program, was created, it grew and grew and grew, and now pays more in taxes annually to the federal government than the entire budget of the SBA. You would ask yourself, so what is the problem here? Why can't we get this bill passed? I can only say that we have members that think that they need to have votes or discussion on 187 amendments that have nothing to do with this bill. And they think that the majority leader is being unreasonable when he tries to bring this to an end. Now, as chair of this committee, I have to say again, and I'm going to end with this, this recession that we're in will never end, never end. And the budget deficit that is crushing the economic potential of this nation will never be eliminated if we do not create jobs in America. And, Madam President, this program is a job-creating machine that is being shut down by this inability of us to come to terms over this debate. And it is a shame, because everyone is counting on us, not just my committee, but the Small Business Committee is one of the important committees here, to put this recession in the rearview mirror. And I can't do it if I can't pass legislation. So if we want jobs, if we want innovation, if we want to create the kind of jobs that the SBIR program, you can see here, awarded firms add 5 times as many employees. These are kind of our super companies. These are companies the smartest. They're on the edge. They're the best. They have gotten the attention of many smart people in the government. Yes, we do have smart people that work for the federal government. And these companies and their technology have become known. And they say, geez, this is the kind of technology that could change this situation, save taxpayer money, and it has such commercial application. Let's give it an award. We can't give it an award because we're stuck here talking about 187 amendments that have nothing to do with this program. Now, I'm sorry, I cannot solve all the problems of the world in the Small Business Committee. I am very sorry. I cannot solve all the health care problems. I cannot resolve the debt situations. I cannot talk about sunset commissions and the Gang of Six and put every piece of legislation in this bill. We have to stay focused, and we have been moving out some very good legislation out of this committee, completely with bipartisan support, with a few little bumps here and there. The Small Business Lending Program was not supported by the Republicans. We only had 2 senators that crossed the aisle to give us the 60 votes to do it. I understand it's controversial. Not everything here is done so in such perfect precision, but we still have high hopes for that program. 600 banks have applied. We believe billions of dollars will be lent out, and that debate is still going on as the administrators come up. But other than that, everything we've passed in our committee has been with bipartisan support. Same with this bill. It comes out 17-1, and I'll finally say to the record and submit this to the record. I was asked by Senator Colburn, who has been cooperative, actually, although he's had quite a few amendments. He's been very open to negotiation here. But he sent me a letter on January 26, and it basically says, and I'm going to submit it for the record, I'd like to help you pass your SBIR bill, but would you please get it out of your committee clean? Because I don't want other extraneous things attached to it, because there are, quote, lesser programs, he said, that I don't support. But I support this one. And he's a member of the committee. He said, Senator, if you can get it out clean, then maybe I can support it on the floor. So what do? I tell all of my members, I'm sorry, you can't have any amendments in committee. I'm sorry, we can't attach anything to this bill because I'm trying to move a clean bill to the floor, only to get to the floor and have 187 amendments that have nothing to do with this bill put on this bill under the guise of, well, we have to do it. We need time on the floor to debate our issue. And I've tried to be patient. I understand that. But I'm asking one last time. I'm asking my ranking member. I'm asking the other members of my committee. I'm asking my Democratic colleagues and Republican colleagues, please, in the next few hours, please let your voice be heard to your leaders, the minority leader, the majority leader, and please try to come to some reasonable agreement. And I think what the cloture amendment is quite reasonable, the cloture petition that Senator Reid has put down. And if we could agree to that, get 60 votes or more, we could move on and pass this reauthorization, which is so important for job creation in America. We're 6 years behind schedule. Not 6 months, not 8 months, 6 years behind schedule. We've been operating this program, very good program, one of the best. Every 3 months, people have to guess whether we're going to extend it or not. That's no way to run, you know, an airline or a train or a bus, you know, or a two-seated car for that matter. You have to have a long runway here to get good things done and to stop wasting taxpayer money and their time. So I'm going to ask, please, let's try to get cloture. And finally, the states that are most affected, the senators that represent these states might want to be heads up. But Colorado, Maryland, Virginia, California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Texas are among the states that benefit the most from this program. All of our states benefit. My own state of Louisiana has received, or companies, not the state, in my state have received some of these awards and gone on to hire hundreds, if not thousands, of people. But these other states have managed very good programs to actually get themselves to the front of the line. So I thank Senator Brown for his co-sponsorship of this bill. I thank other senators from these states. But the Texas senators, the New York senators, Ohio and Pennsylvania particularly, and California, the top of the list, have a lot to lose if we can't get this program reauthorized. So I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll. Mr. Akaka. This Senate is in a quorum call.
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with,
Without objection.
and I be allowed to proceed as if in morning business for 8 minutes.
Without objection.
Madam President, I rise today to thank my colleagues in the U.S. Senate and countless others across the country for their outpouring of support and offers of assistance to my state of Alabama in this time of need. On April the 27th, this last week, an unprecedented tornado system struck the state of Alabama, claiming hundreds of lives and destroying thousands of homes and businesses. At last count, 236 people in Alabama alone were dead, with thousands more injured and a lot missing. Madam President, it will take many years and potentially billions of dollars for my state to fully recover from this catastrophic disaster. We have received calls from my fellow senators, many of whom recently experienced destruction in their own states due to floods and deadly storms, for help. To those who have reached out, I want to offer my sincere gratitude on behalf of the people of Alabama. I also want to thank President Obama and FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate for their swift response and commitment to restoring our state. Their words of encouragement to disaster victims during their visit to Alabama helped ease the grief burdening local families. And their work with Governor Robert Bentley and Alabama Emergency Management Director Art Faulkner has provided vital assistance during these difficult times. This continued level of federal coordination is critical to ensuring that Alabama gets back on its feet as quickly as possible. Madam President, I have never in my life seen such devastation to the extent that I saw during my visit to my home state of Alabama recently. Giant oaks lie flattened and splintered. Homes throughout the state were demolished, leaving thousands homeless and reliant on the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and others for shelter. At one point last week, over 1 million Alabama residents were without power, almost a quarter of the state's population. It was gut-wrenching to walk through scattered rubble and realize it was once the site of someone's home or someone's business. Madam President, the scale and the magnitude of destruction can only be described as hell on earth. And in our state, while larger cities like Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, my hometown, suffered extensive damage, so did other rural areas. Communities like Pratt City, Pleasant Grove, Concord, Rainsville, Hackleburg, Coleman, and many others also incurred the wrath of the storm system and are now trying to assess the extent of their damage. In DeKalb, Marion, and Franklin counties alone in my state of Alabama, we have seen nearly 100 deaths. Virtually every part of the state was touched by storms, and all of us were affected. The pain and loss that families are experiencing are still fresh. Many remain in shock. However, we must also recognize that my state of Alabama was not the lone victim of the storm. As we continue our cleanup and recovery efforts, so do the people of Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, Virginia, Louisiana, and Kentucky. Our thoughts and prayers are with all the affected states. We stand willing and able to assist you as you have offered similar support to us in Alabama. Madam President, I want to take a moment to reassure the people of Alabama and all the affected states that we will do on a federal level everything we can to restore life as it was before. My staff and I are working with the state, FEMA, and the other federal agencies to ensure as quick and efficient a recovery as possible. Thousands of Alabamians have opened their homes, donated supplies, clothes, made contributions, and rushed to help in any way they could. And after witnessing the selfless generosity of complete strangers and the sheer resilience of those affected by the storms, I have never been more proud to call Alabama my home. I'm convinced that together we can overcome this terrible tragedy. And it'll take a lot of work and a lot of help from volunteers that have already volunteered. Thank you, Madam President, and I yield the floor.
Clerk will call a roll.
Mr. Akaka.
I should look at who's presiding before I speak. I ask consent to call the quorum be terminated.
Without objection.
I now ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to S-Res 160.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 160, designating May 6, 2011 as Military Spouse Appreciation Day.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, motion for reconsider be laid on the table.
Without objection.
I ask consent the Senate proceed to S-Res 161.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 161, designating May 2011 as National Inventors Month.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion for reconsider be laid on the table, there be no intervening action or debate. Any statements relating to this matter be placed in the record as read.
Without objection.
Madam President, I ask consent that when the Senate completes its business day adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, May 4th, following the prayer and the pledge during the proceedings be approved to date, the morning hour be deemed expired, the time for the two leaders be reserved for the use later in the day. The Senate then proceed to a period of morning business for a debate only until 12 p.m. The senators permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each, with the time equally divided and controlled between the two leaders that are designated, with the majority controlling the first 30 minutes and the Republicans controlling the next 30 minutes. Further, the filing deadline for all second-degree amendments to S-493 be at 11 a.m. Finally, I ask consent that cloture vote with respect to 493 occur at 12 p.m. on Wednesday.
Without objection.
Mr. President, there will be two roll call votes at noon tomorrow. The first will be on a motion to invoke cloture on S-493, the Small Business Jobs Bill. If cloture is not invoked on the bill, the Senate will immediately proceed to a roll call vote on the motion to invoke cloture on the nomination of John McConnell, the United States District Judge for the District of Rhode Island. Madam President, if there is no further business to come before the Senate, I ask it adjourn under the previous order.
The Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Senators approved a resolution today commending U.S. forces and the intelligence community